On today's question of faith, why should young adults give back? Hey everybody, welcome to Question of Faith. I am Mike Hayes. I am the Young Adult Ministry Director here in the Diocese of Cleveland.
And I'm Father Damian Ferentz, the Vicar for Evangelization.
And I am John Regan. I'm a parishioner at St. Basil the Great Parish in Brecksville, Ohio.
Nice. And, Regan, that sounds familiar.
Yes, it is. So my beautiful and wonderful wife, Carrie Regan, she is a youth ministry specialist here
of course.
Out of this office. So.
And she's been on the show. She sat right in that chair.
Yes, exactly. So I've heard so many great things, that she's shared, what you guys have invoked. So I said, I'm going to give it a shot. So hopefully I can fill her shoes.
It's good to have you on the show. And your voice, it sounds familiar because when I call Carrie, you speak in a British accent. Is that her dad?
Her father.
Oh, okay.
Her father. So if you call Carrie's cell phone, it'll be this British accent saying that you've reached the voicemail box of Carrie Shell, her maiden name, and So
but have you ever been on Instagram doing some funny imitations or talking in a different language?
Probably. I was in theater in high school and all that stuff. Okay, so.
And aren't you in a barbershop quartet or who sang at your wedding mass?
Oh, so that was the BW Men's Chorus. So they're a community ensemble made up of men aged high school up into retirement age, and we sing and perform at different concerts throughout the year.
Right.
And all of that.
BW being Baldwin Wallace.
Correct.
University.
Baldwin Wallace University.
Yes, for those who don't know.
Yeah.
Great. So, John, why should young adults give back? This was your question.
Yeah.
So why should young adults give back?
That's a great question, and I feel like it's something that, as a young adult and even as a younger adult, like being high school age, you see your parents, growing up, like putting the envelope in the basket that's passed around at Mass, and it's, that's something that, I'll do when I'm old and I'm sitting on my money bags and I can give back. But, as I've grown and developed throughout the years and went through, being in high school, through college, I've really found that, my idea of giving back has changed. It's not just, supporting with your treasure. We have the teachings of philanthropy where it's your time, your treasure, and your talent.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also those other two aspects where it's your time as well as your talent. So just looking for those opportunities where you can give back to those in need. That's something that in my personal life I've found very rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also something that I feel is a great opportunity to see other young adults, be with other young adults, and giving back to the community. Of course, I mentioned that there's the giving back financially component, which is something that I feel that everybody should be doing throughout, their time. If everybody's going to a parish,
Sure.
giving back to that parish, specifically maybe a ministry that you're working in, but also too, there's your time and your talent as well in volunteering.
Well, what do you do with the comment, I don't have a lot of money now, things are really tight, so I will wait until I'm sitting on a bunch of my money bags, and then I'll be able to give. How
I'm
do you
still waiting to
respond
be
that?
sitting on those money bags, by the way, and I'm 53,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
there.
Ditto.
Yeah.
We all are. I think, I've heard that response before from other people,
Yeah.
and I think that, there is some validity to that school of thought. I don't know your full story. I don't know what your financial picture looks like.
Sure.
But, I would encourage you to take a look at, what you're spending your money on and find ways that you can give back, even if it's just a handful of dollars, give back to causes that you feel are worthwhile, I don't have any money to give, but I go out Friday and Saturday night and spend, $20 at the bar. It's like, okay, well, over the course of a month, like you could probably find $50, $25 that you could give back to, a program that you feel you've benefited from or one that speaks to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't do this well in several circles, not just the church circle. I mean, universities don't do this well either. They always talk about young alumni giving and things along those lines that are always very low. John, how do you suggest like people start to think about this? Like, there are a whole bunch of causes to give back to. How do I start to think about which causes I should give and how much?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I would start by taking a look at yourself. What are you passionate about?
Yeah.
What speaks to you? Where do you see the potential impact for the most good? And that's where you should be investing, your giving, whether that's, again, of the treasure component, where it's, okay, I looked at my budget and I'm really passionate about, let's just say, saving animals. So looking at, maybe an animal hospital, donating to them where they help animals, or, specifically in the context of the church, you can do some things where you double dip. So, for example, I'm on the core program for high school ministry at St. Basil the Great in Brecksville. So that's a place where I not only give of my treasure by saying, okay, here's $50. So, when we go on retreat, if there's a student where maybe, their parents are struggling financially and they can't afford to go, the program could help them out in that way. But additionally, too, of giving to your time, spending time with those high schoolers, ministering to them and connecting to them so they can have an example or a role model in the faith.
Yeah. The other things, too, that I think I find, and I've done this, is finding money for people. Like maybe you don't have a lot of money yourself, but you know someone who does, or you know someone who can give a gift in kind. You might know someone who owns a bar and who would be willing to host Theology on Tap for free, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. All those kinds of things I think are always good to do.
Exactly. And I think, we're incredibly blessed here in the Diocese of Cleveland to have a very close-knit Catholic community where a lot of people swim in the same circles and people know each other. So there's that opportunity again where, we're looking for a venue to host this event. Oh, well, we went here for an event with my parish and it was really successful. It was really good. I'm happy to connect you and give you the contact information for the owner. Or, you hear about a ministry where it's like, hey, this is really blossoming and booming and we're looking forward to what's coming up here. But, there are some costs that, are associated with the ministry that we're doing. Would you consider donating so you could sponsor somebody to have this awesome encounter with Christ?
Yeah. This isn't even this is also a problem not just between, let's say, people who don't have a lot of money, right? And so they're not quite sure how they can give back or if they can give back financially. It's also a problem with people who have money. And so I was part of this group with FADICA, Foundations and Donors Interested in Catholic Activities in D.C., and they were finding that younger members of foundations were inheriting the foundations from grandma and grandpa, right? And they had no idea what grandma and grandpa even thought about what to do with the money, right? They didn't know what to fund. They had no idea. And so what FADICA did was they introduced them to younger people who were doing interesting things in the church that they thought were interesting that these people might be interested in. And they introduced them together, and they spent a whole weekend we spent together. And so we learned what it was like for these family foundations to decide how they were going to grant people money. And then they saw it from our side and said, wow, it's really hard for them to ask us for money. And they made those things a lot easier to kind of navigate. But I thought it was really interesting that the younger members of foundations weren't quite aware of what they should do, how they should be giving back and everything. So it was a good collaboration in general.
One of the remedies for certain types of depression, anxiety, sadness, loneliness is giving oneself away. And just like Christ gave himself away on the cross. So we're made to receive gifts, and so it's important to have enough so that you can sustain your material needs, your health needs and all. But we're also made to give ourselves away in love. So at Mass, Christ says, this is my body, I'm going to keep it for myself. No, he says, this is my body given up for you. This is my blood poured out for you. And if we become what we receive, who we receive, Jesus, that means that our lives too make the most sense when we're pouring them out in love, when we're giving them away. And that includes everything that we have, our finances, our time, our treasure, our entire lives. So finding a place to do that, to pour yourself out in love, obviously in your marriage and your marriage and my priesthood and in our work, in our vocations, that's actually a remedy to a lot of the materialism and consumerism of the culture, because the world's teaching us that if you want to be happy, you have to have all the money, you have to have all the possessions, and then once you have that, you'll be really happy. But we know that's not the case. We look at celebrities and athletes and musicians who have made a lot of money financially and have a lot of fame, but oftentimes are very miserable. But the ones who avoid that misery are the ones who are pouring themselves out in love. So this is a mandate of the gospel that's good for you. Like all of them are good for you. But I think it's important to mention that we are made as gifts to receive the gifts of God. But then any gift that we've received, it's up to us to give it away. Yeah. And then you get more gifts. That's the nature of grace and the life of grace.
Yeah, it's that compounding reward that you receive. Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, Sunday afternoons rolling around, and it's like, okay, Life Team's happening Sunday night, and it's like, I've got work on Monday, I've been running around like crazy this weekend. I just wish I had an opportunity to relax. But, whenever I leave a ministry that I'm working in, or, I have the opportunity to have my, financial gifts, have somebody be empowered or, support them, that thought is just one that, like, it makes you feel warm inside. It's just so good. It's so rewarding. And I, would challenge anybody listening, if maybe, you haven't given before in the past, like, give it a shot this coming month. Take some time, sit down in prayer and reflection and say, God, where are you looking for me to have an impact? Spend some time with that in prayer, and maybe it's an organization that you feel compelled to give to financially. Maybe it's, a ministry in your church where, it's like, hey, I enjoy working with, youth or children looking to volunteer maybe in high school ministry. Maybe if it's like, hey, they're having a mom's group and they need babysitters and I happen to be free that Saturday morning, like I'll go babysit for this group and spend time with, God's, most precious gift to us, which is children. I encourage you to ponder that, explore that, and, of course, take action.
Yeah, get outside yourself. It's that, and it's scary, but it's also where it's at. It's very Marian too. Like, okay, here we go. Let's go.
Yeah. God's not going to give you anything that you're not capable of doing. So take the leap of faith.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned earlier, the sort of notion of gratitude of, that we receive a lot, and then therefore we should be pouring ourselves back out. A very Eucharistic thought on your part as well. But I was thinking that if you had to put a dollar amount on all the things that you've been given from some things, that would probably be a rather high amount.
Sure,
like I just think about the local parish I was in that I grew up in, that I got married in, all these things, and all the things that those folks gave to me. How do I put a dollar amount on that? That would be really hard. And so the least I can do is kind of give what I can back to them as a measure of gratitude for what has been already given to me. So you're already getting a lot certainly in terms of parish, but probably other organizations as well. Yeah.
Just last week, I had the great honor of preaching the funeral mass for Fr Krizner, who was my high school chaplain at Holy Name. And I had a great high school experience. And again, I can't put a dollar amount on it because I had, teachers who loved me and supported me. It felt like family there, met a bunch of friends. It was formidable 4 years. I saw a priest almost every day of my high school career. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the most important thing that was passed on to me from my high school experience was actually the gift of faith. Yeah. And taking the faith that my mom and dad raised me in, but then appropriating it and showing me that this wasn't just their faith, it's mine too. And it's going to look a little different in my life because I was born, 50 years after my dad and 37 years after my mom. So it's going to look a little different, but it's the same Catholic faith. It's the one faith. And that was showed to me by a lot of the folks who helped form me in my high school. So that is one of the places that I give back to because, and I can never give back what was given to me, but I'm giving back what I have, right?
Yeah, so, exactly.
As you would say, don't give what you don't have, but give what you have.
That's right. Be grateful for what you have and be able to give away what you can. Right.
And I think, Father Damien, like what you hit on there, the impact that it had on you, sometimes, we think, oh, what I would be able to give, like, is never going to be enough, is never going to amount to, what I've received. But that's very much, like our own viewpoint of it. I've had the opportunity to work through Baldwin Wallace University, my alma mater, their MBA association. So I work in a mentorship program with MBA students who are maybe coming right out of school. So, spending time with them in professional development. And, until you dive wholly into ministry, whatever that looks like, whether it's professional, whether it's something at the church, just the light that you can be in somebody else's life just by sharing your thoughts with them, giving them some advice if they're open to receiving it. It's something that's truly, truly powerful. The same thing happens, in ministering to high school teens. And it's like, listen, I was in your shoes once. I understand where you're at and, everything that you are going through right now, and just being that, of course, praying to the Holy Spirit that you can be the voice of God to them. But, who knows? Years from now, they could be a priest sitting in your shoes and saying, I had this great relationship with, one of my now brother priests, and the truth that he spoke to me truly was amazing and a blessing.
Yeah. Whenever I get an invite to do anything with our Catholic high schools or our youth groups in the Diocese of Cleveland, I'll say yes unless I can't possibly say yes, even if it means that may be my third Mass for the day, or that I didn't get a break, or it's going to be a long, long day. I was at St. Helens in Newberry this past Sunday. I had Mass there, Life Night, a little bit of adoration. And I was gassed by the end of that. But it was a good kind of gas. It's like at the end of it, okay, I poured myself out. But that was an investment, because that investment was made by others for me. And I know the importance of youth ministry, or in Mike's case, young adult ministry, and that we need to be where the people are and pour ourselves out. And okay, so it's not my time and it's not my life, and sometimes you get cut short of some of those things, but that's Christ on the cross too, right? So making a gift of yourself to others, you got to take care of yourself, certainly, but not to the point where you don't get exhausted from time to time, because there's a good kind of like ministry exhaustion. You could rest from and then get ready to do it again, but there's something about pouring yourself out in love that is very satisfying, because you're united with Christ, who poured himself out in love on the cross, and the martyrs and the saints, and there's something good about that.
Yeah, and John, you alluded to this. You never know the impact that you're going to have on somebody, even a small thing. Shout out to my friend Mary Matunis, who is a longtime campus minister at Alvernia University in Pennsylvania. So she went to this alumni event one night, and this guy comes up to her, and she didn't remember who he was, right? And he graduated 10 years ago, and he wanted to, Mary Matunis, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. You said something to me when I was a sophomore, changed my life. And she was like, wow, really? What did I say to you? He goes, I don't remember, but it changed my life. It's like, by the way, I have advice. Since you're newly married, I have financial advice for you. So this is the first mistake I made
Alrighty.
as a married man. Okay, so my college roommate, Dave Connors, died when he was 25, unfortunately, right? And so we all rallied around and started a fund for the EMS crew at Fordham, where we went to school together, because they were really good to him. Yeah. He was a sick kid, and they were in our room constantly, picking him up, taking him to the hospital, things like that. So we refurbished a Suburban for them they used to kind of pick up. And it cost a lot of money and did a lot of time, but we went out and we got all of our classmates to encourage us. It was the second highest giving number for the year of fundraising that year, and so they were very grateful to us. But what I said to the development officer when we were working on this, I said, "Look, I don't have a lot of money. I'm going to give you $200. That's the most I can give you." I said, "But on my 10th anniversary, which I thought I'd be sitting on my money bags, John, I said, I'll give you $1,000, right?" That development officer was so good, he called me
you back to the
on that day, right? And he said, "Hey, 10-year anniversary. I remember this pledge you made, And I said, and I happened to work across the street from Fordham Lincoln Center at the time, right? And so I said, "Yep, you're right." I said, "I would give this to you. I'm a man of my word. I'll go do it." I wrote him a check. I walked across the street. What did I not do?
Ask your wife.
Correct. Did not talk to my newly married wife. So I come home that night, and Marion's doing something around the house, and I said, "Oh yeah, by the way, I meant to tell you." I said, "This development officer from Fordham called me." I said, "You remember him, right?" She said, "Oh yeah, we met him at this event." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, he reminded me of this pledge I made, so I walked him across the street. A check for $1,000. You did what?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I pledged this a while ago, and that's the way it works." And she was like, No, that's not the way it works." And then I made the fatal flaw. Well, it's my money.
Yes. In being married for just over 6 months, combining finances has been quite the journey for both Carrie and I, but it's also been a great opportunity for us
Yes.
to hear each other's passions when it comes down to giving financially. I know, for example, Carrie's been supporting a young woman who's in St. Paul's outreach.
Sure.
And, when we came together, we were combining finances. I was like, okay, what's this line item in your ledger? Like, where's this $50 going? And it was a great educational opportunity for me to hear I had this relationship with this individual. We were very close, and she's out doing this work now. And this is something that I feel is important, and I'd still like to continue giving to it. And I don't want to be, say, hey, no, you can't do that. It's like, if you feel that that's, what's important and what matters, it makes sense to me, and I'm happy to support it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, and Mary and I do the same thing. We say, okay, well, what's really important to us, and how can we do this? In the situation that I just mentioned before, she asked, could you call the development officer, ask him to tear that check up, and ask him if you can give him $250 quarterly.
There you go.
And I said, sure, I can do that. And she said, I'm not above you giving away this money. That's a lot of money that we don't really have. She said, but if you think we could manage it, we'll cut back in some other ways.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did for the year anyway.
Cool.
So good. And so speaking of places that you can give back, a church is one of those places. And so, John, you brought a church with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So the parish that, I was thinking about and praying on, reflecting on, is actually Mother of Sorrows Parish in Peninsula, Ohio. So it's located right in the heart of the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, right there in, scenic downtown Peninsula. And, in thinking about the church, what it means, I've realized that it's been important to my family. That's where my mother's family has been stationed down there in Peninsula. They've lived there for many years. The parish itself was actually built in 1882. Yeah. So, you think of one of those parishes that has such a history and such a legacy. That's definitely Mother of Sorrows. My grandparents were married there. My great-grandparents were married there. My parents were married there. All of those people. And it's just, a very beautiful, quaint church. It's almost like out of a Hallmark movie or something like that.
It is quaint, and two things about it. One, it's so small, there are no microphones.
Yes.
And number two, it's so small that the pews butt up against the wall on the right or left. So when you come out for communion, it's like our chapel here on the 6th floor, that you've got to come out and then you go back in the same side that you came out. But it looks like a Hallmark movie card. And there's so many runners and bikers and all sorts of folks. I mean, the Winking Lizard down there and the Eddie's Bike Shop and all. It's a beautiful little church that you don't want to miss.
Exactly. It's like summer's coming up. Well, we're not dealing with it now. We had fall spring last week here in Cleveland, but
snowing here today.
Yeah,
just so
exactly.
You know.
But when the summer's coming up,
that was me.
Yeah.
That's what I think
Beautiful
of the weather.
sound effects.
Sorry. Yeah.
But summer's coming up, so pick a Sunday and say, hey, we're going to go to 9:00 Mass at Mother of Sorrows, and then we're going to go take the family on a walk on the towpath. It's within walking distance. There's plenty of places to go out there and explore and be in nature.
When I was at my first assignment in St. Mary's Hudson, I would ride my bike, do like a 20-miler down to the valley, and then I'd come and I'd pass the street. I'd stay on 303, but I'd always see that church over there on the right. It's a beautiful little thing.
Yeah.
So.
And then our readings for this Sunday, for the third Sunday of Easter. This is my favorite gospel, actually. It's the Emmaus story. I was part of the Emmaus retreat program when I was in high school, and so it was always a story that really meant a lot to me. And so I just love that Jesus comes up to them and just walks them. They don't recognize him, and he sort of leads them through the story. So, well, what sort of things are going on?
Yeah.
And they tell him, are you the only one who didn't know what happens? And then they end up having their eyes opened in the Eucharistic moment at the end. So I just really love the story in general.
Yeah, the line that I pulled out as I was reading through this is, with that their eyes were open, they recognized him, and then he vanished. And I don't know about those of you listening, Father Damien and Mike, your thoughts, but all of my encounters with Christ have just been very short snippets, and then it's poof, gone, and I have to rewind and retrack and be wait, did I hear that correctly? Was that an encounter? Was that me just thinking something? I'll never forget, I was stressed in Christmas shopping when I was dating my now wife Carrie, and I was God, is this what you're calling me to do, to propose to this woman, to marry this woman? And I was stressed, stopped at St. Charles Borromeo. They've got the Adoration Chapel there, and spent some time with the Lord, and I just heard him very clearly say, be one, and then like it was gone, and it was just like, wait, did I hear that right? Was something wrong here? Like, is this me just thinking this? But that thought again of it's just like those encounters with Christ, they can just be like the snap of a finger, and then
for sure.
gone.
And he appeared to he took the bread, blessed it, broke it, gave it to them. With that, their eyes were open, recognized me, vanished from their sight. So it's very Eucharistic, too, which is cool. Speaking of Eucharistic, my little contribution to this conversation is that in the Roman Missal, there are 10 Eucharistic prayers. Mm-hmm. There are 4 near the back end of the Missal called prayers for various needs. So various need 1, 2, 3, 4, V1, V2, V3, V4. The opening paragraph in all of them is a quick account of the road to Emmaus. This is what it says. You are indeed holy and to be glorified, O God, who love the human race and who always walk with us on the journey of life. So there's Jesus walking. Mm-hmm. Blessed indeed is your Son, present in our midst, when we are gathered by his love, and when, as once for the disciples, so now for us, he opens the scriptures and breaks the bread. Yeah. So that's a direct account of the road to Emmaus. So this weekend at Masses, I'll probably use one of those 4 prayers, Eucharistic prayers, when I have Mass. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it reminds us Christ is present both word and in the Eucharist as well.
Both liturgy. Liturgy of the Word, liturgy of the Eucharist,
yeah, exactly. And so, hey, Ignite Conference is coming up. If you haven't registered yet, we're going to be at the Marriott on the 29th, the Young Adult Conference. Father Jacob Bearer, Sister John Paul Myers, and Pete Burek is our 3 speakers. There's still room, so register $55. You can check that at ignitecatholic.com. And John, thanks for joining us. It was great having you.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah. And so I'm Mike Hayes.
I'm Father Damien Ference.
We'll have all this and more next time on Question of Faith.